Hello and welcome everyone to today's developer update 11.10, where we discuss all the most important changes coming to you tomorrow, actually, with update 11.10, the October update. And I'm joined, as always, by the wonderful Molegion. Hello, Molegion.
Hello, Ryan. Yeah, it's not gonna be a huge update in terms of number of changes, but it's gonna be quite a huge update in terms of things we have for you. Yeah, it will be mostly focused. The changes to existing cards will be mostly focused on polishing stuff after the expansion and preparing us for the future.
That's it. Preparing us for the future is quite a big topic in this update. But before we get into that, I think we should take a look at the highlights of the card changes that we implemented. And for this, I'm happy to announce that we're going back to showing changes live in a special build that we've prepared for you. Thank you all to all the devs working behind the scenes to make this possible as well. And now let's take a look at the card changes. For that, we go into the deck builder, and now, Molegion, you get to tell me which cards do you want to talk about specifically.
Yeah, this brings back memories. Let's go to City Nova first. But yeah, I wanted to say that this brings back memories because this is how the overviews used to be done, right?
Yep. And I specifically deleted all my personal decks. I only have the starter decks here, so there's no judgment from the community on which decks I play.
Yeah, just before this video, Ryan deleted like 14 Nilfgaard decks.
Yeah,
so don't
exactly.
believe anything he says.
Don't believe his lies. So when I Google Siri here, when I search Siri, Golden Necker shows up. So maybe you can tell me what this is about while I go into Siri Nova.
Okay, so this isn't a change with huge impact on the live service, right? But this is mostly preparation for future. So as you know, this is the last handmade developer prepaid content update for GWENT. So after this, we won't be preparing changes to cards anymore. And instead we will be using a system. You could see it in the main menu. It's called balance cancel. We will get that later. But basically the system will allow you to vote for changes in cards power and provision cost. That means that you will have the option to vote for the City Novas and Golden Neckers provision cost to be 10. And in the current, like in the 11.9 state of the game, it would mean that those cards just simply don't work, right? Because they exclude themselves from their condition. So we were thinking a little bit if maybe it's okay to keep it that way. Maybe if you guys want to rotate it out, maybe we should allow it. But in the end, we discussed it with the community, and we decided that the best way to continue with City Nova and Golden Necker decks is to exclude them from their own conditions. So right now, you will be able to vote for Golden Necker to cost 10, City Nova to cost 10, and they will still work together. However, all other cards that are not City Nova and not Golden Necker still need to be 9 cost or lower, right? So yep. They now have this reference to each other in the deck builder, but this is pretty much the only change. You want to be able to make them like completely brick themselves.
Seems good to keep the game in a functional state in this kind of sense, even though I also like the idea of locking them somehow. But this is the current iteration, and let's see.
I would like to also add sorry, one more thing here, because there are some cards that can be still voted into a state that is playable but not good. But we didn't have like a special tweaks for them. We give you the option to make them that way if you for some reason want to. So River Hunters are, for example, an example of such cards. However, with City Nova and Golden Necker, we think that they are not just cards, right? Like they are a whole deck type, and they enable a lot of different stuff. So and in the end, like I know that there were times where every deck seemed like a Golden Necker deck, but I think nowadays we are at the game state where existence of those cards adds to the game variety. So we wanted to make sure that those decks can still exist, so there can be like more decks that are viable, more ways of building the decks, right? So yeah, just wanted to point that out.
Seems good. Let's take a look then at our next highlight, which is our beloved vampire.
Regis Bloodlust, or Gigi's. Still not sure how. What's the pronunciation that we prefer here? But I like Regis. I think that
Regis.
yeah, it just fits him more, I think. Okay, so small change here. We basically merged the on the battlefield and in your graveyard condition. As you remember, on the battlefield, Regis used to banish your entire deck if you lost the round. So this led to two things. First of all, it allowed a deck like the Monster Mill deck to exist. Basically, the idea was that you would put Regis on top of your deck, swap a top card with
opponent's deck.
With opponent's deck, pull Regis out with Goliath, and you would do that preferably after your opponent has passed, so they couldn't react, and then you just win the game, right?
Seems good.
This deck kind of sucked, to be honest. Like it wasn't that good. It was like if you saw Overwhelming Hunger and you just didn't pass, it was impossible to execute this pretty much. But it was still like we saw that it was still frustrating for many players to face it, and there was this anxiety of seeing Overwhelming Hunger and knowing that you can't pass.
Yeah.
So yeah, in the end, even though it was funny for a while, we decided that maybe we don't want Regis to just cause so much anxiety for in the opponent. And also, people are really scared of taking risks in Gwent usually, so we just lowered the risk. Right now, if you lose with him on the board, you only lose top 3 cards. You don't know what it will be, right? Maybe it will be your 3 best golds, so there's still a lot of risk involved. However, it's slightly smaller, so maybe you will be more encouraged to include this card in your deck regularly. And well, definitely it's less advised to go down 3 cards to mill your opponents now. As the Monster Mill deck, it's probably not worth it anymore. So yeah,
that's fair.
A change we made because it was a popular request.
Next up then on the chopping block is Ravid, and he gets a little bit of a change, specifically Ravid Judgment. So
yeah, this one.
Go ahead and lead us through it here, Molegion.
So I think it was generally agreed that this card was not so good. On release, there's this devotion condition, which is of course always quite a big deal these days. And just summoning 6 power felt like not a lot. So what we did here is we added an order ability for him, which allows him to put that sword to use on the artwork, and he can actually deal some damage based on the number of times you used your leader ability in this game. So he also synergizes with the other Ravid card.
Yep.
Should be a decent improvement. You can still, of course, play him outside of devotion decks, but yeah, I don't know if you want to, because then it means you just are playing him from hand. But yeah, if in case, for example, you roll him in draft or something, it can be like not so terrible, right? So yeah, there's this order ability. Maybe it will give some new life to devotion Northern Realm decks. Maybe not, but it's definitely better.
Definitely better. Exactly. Why don't we take a look at... I mean, I know we have the Nilfgaard cards that we want to talk about, but maybe I think we should talk about Svalbard first.
Yes, let's do that. So, summing up Skellige in 11.9, we could say Svalbard and Sove, right? Those were the 2 cards that took over. And Skellige was performing quite well. It was for sure the second best faction in this season. Many people would maybe say it was even the best. But we wanted to maybe we wanted Svabot to chill down a little bit, to chill out, because
he doesn't look very chill.
Yeah, he doesn't look very chill, and his ability to erase stuff from the boards was going quite wild. So what we did here, it's not maybe visible at the first glance, but we increased the amount of damage you need to deal, the number of damage you need to deal to summon the fanatic. So now instead of 6, it's an 8. So this should make it a little bit harder to get the fanatics, which as a result means that repeating the deploy ability might also be a bit harder to trigger.
Yeah.
And we did that. We don't have changes for Sove. I know that there were people who were saying that Sove should be nerfed, and it might be true, but we wanted to change Svalbard and leave Sove as something that you guys can decide to vote for in the balance council later, because this number that we changed here for Svalbard, you wouldn't be able to change it in balance council, so we did it now, and we leave Sove for your judgment.
Fair enough. And now maybe Swarm players can breathe a sigh of relief just a little bit. Just a tiny bit. Oh!
Yeah, it can still erase your board, so...
Exited out too early.
Yeah, don't be too relaxed about this, but it should help.
Next up, we've got some Ardalists to talk about.
So 2 reasons for this change. Death and Ardalist mostly affecting the status Nilfgaard deck, right? It used to not have this counter, so basically this ability was infinite, which resulted in 2 things. First of all, it was like a very cheap way of generating a lot of points in round 1, especially. That was usually when this card is used. However, there were also some very funky interactions, like infinite loop with Zigwald and that kind of nonsense. So yeah, this is mostly to prevent stuff like this, but also to tame down the status deck a little bit. Nilfgaard was doing quite well. I think statistically it will be the 3rd best faction, maybe 4th, depends on the time of the season, but yeah, it's definitely doing quite well. We don't have a ton of nerfs for Nilfgaard. Again, we want the game to be in a state where you guys are more or less acknowledged with the state of the current meta decks and can vote accordingly. But yeah, definitely Ardalist is one of the changes that we all have right now, so should make the status deck at least a little bit weaker. And if somebody doesn't remember what counter means in this case, it just means number of times. It's not a timer, right? It's a counter. Yeah. It's number of times this ability can be used. So for example, like Azur has counter 3. Azur's ability can be used 3 times. This Death when Arbalest's ability can be used 6 times.
It just caps it, I guess, to 10 points.
Yes.
In total.
Exactly.
And if you feel like that's too weak, you can always just bump it in power later on, Vote for it to be increased.
Yeah.
Cool. So let's check out the second Nilfgaard card that we want to talk about. And that is Afon, who's, I guess, been reined in terms of archetype a little bit.
Yes. So Afon, many people were wondering why Afon is getting played from your deck rather than summoned, and the answer was that we wanted Afon to be a card that is played with the flanking cards. And of course, if he gets summoned to the end of the row, which means that he breaks flanking, right?
Yeah.
But he wasn't played with flanking anyway. He became like a very devoted cultist of the Eternal Eclipse. It was definitely his main purpose, and there is quite a lot of people who really are not, let's say, not in favor of the Eternal Eclipse curse. So, well, of course, playing as the cultists means that playing a gold card is really powerful, and being able to play additional gold card from your deck, not summon but actually play it, is a pretty big deal. So we have basically made it so that Afon gets only summoned unless you control flanking units. Then you can still play him and gain zeal, right, on top of the other ability. So ideally, this makes him a little bit better in the case of the soldier deck, right? Because you might get this, you might get zeal and whatnot. And also should make deck building for cultists significantly harder, and playing him from the deck should be also more difficult because, well, there's some counterplay now, right? Like, for example, if you are scared, like if you see you are facing cultists and your opponent is developing a lot of flanking cards, you can get rid of one of them, and maybe that means your opponent cannot have 4 flanking cards anymore because, well, they also need to run other stuff.
Yep.
Because they are playing cultists, not flanking soldiers, whatever, right? So yeah, mostly change dedicated to tuning down cultists with a small upside for the flanking cards. Again, if you guys think it will be not enough, it's probably a solid candidate for the like buffs in balance cancel.
Yep. Cool. Then we've got 2 more to go through. First of all, Exor, aka our producer, actually scolding us.
Yeah, it's like product owner, right?
Yeah, but I didn't want to go into too much. How's it called? Development naming details. I feel like there's a lot of different names for things in this world. But anyways, Exor.
Everyone's favorite card, right?
Exactly.
Everybody loves to see Exor come on the board, and then you are like, oh, I guess my
love it.
12 and 14 cards, which happen to be my lowest power units, will die. That's great. So yeah, the problem with destroying the lowest power units is that sometimes it does close to nothing. It kills 1 power units.
A rat.
And sometimes it kills like 10s or 12s and big stuff, especially with open sesames, which allow you to get a lot of coins in a single turn. So yeah, as you can see, we increased the vice here from 6 to 8 to make it a little bit harder to trigger this effect and a little bit harder to do it multiple times per turn. Which, yeah, was definitely a big source of power for Syndicate in 11.9. So I think many people will be happy to see that change. I guess there's no point to elaborate further.
Yep.
On this. I can elaborate a bit. We didn't change open sesames. I know that this was something that people were asking about and suggesting. I will explain why we didn't do it after we take a look at the other card. It's not connected, but just for good ordering, we can take a look at Novigrad now.
Let's do that. Go.
Yeah, so this doesn't have like a huge gameplay change, but we increased the provision cost by 2, right? So in the balance cancel, you will only be able to do it by 1 per cycle. So we did it by 2 to quicken it up a little bit. It's probably closer to what it should be than 10. So those are the 2 main nerfs to Syndicate. And now, why we didn't change Open Sesame to 6, because this was the suggestion from some people that maybe we should change it to 6, so shady vendor cannot grab it, and this idea of having many Open Sesames in your graveyard will no longer be a thing. And this was definitely something that we were considering. Some time ago we even asked our pro players if they would play Open Sesames for 6 provisions. And there seemed to be some mixed opinions on this. But in the end, like what we did, we thought that Exora definitely deserves the nerf. Yeah. Novigrad also deserves the nerf. And we didn't want to over nerf Syndicate, especially since you guys will be able to do this Open Sesame change yourselves. So basically, what we are doing here is we want to give Syndicate some time to show if it's still nerf worthy after the Exor and Novigrad change, and if it is, there are tools to do it for you, right? Like it will depend on how you feel about the game.
Yeah.
We didn't want to get ahead of ourselves here, and would suck to make the cards to nerf it to the point where people don't want to play it, because sure, you can buff it back up, but I think it will be harder in general to buff cards than to nerf cards, right? Because usually the community has some unified idea of what is too strong, and about what is too weak, it requires some more coordination. So
That's true.
So yeah.
You know, I think it feels very in line with real world rent in big cities going up exponentially, so just very fitting. All right, that's all the change that we wanted to highlight. There's a few more that you can check out in the patch notes, obviously. Let's quickly jump back to our faces. Hello, while I prepare our next topic. But yeah, there's more changes in the patch notes, which should be out already. All of those changes are coming tomorrow with update 11.10. Actually, before we jump into the Balance Council, I want to give a quick shout out to our artists and show off the Full Moon board, which you can buy right now in the shop. This supports our GWENT Master finals that is happening during December, and it will increase and boost the prize pool for our pro players. So if you want to support that, this is your chance to grab it. It has some nice VFX, it looks really cool with the moon, and yeah, overall nice addition to your board collection. So check that out if you haven't yet. If you want to grab it, it's available. And with that, I'm gonna say goodbye to Shoop here and take a look at the Balance Council. So I think a lot of people have been waiting for this. There's a lot to it, so I think we should go through it in detail. And the first thing, if you open it, is actually the infographic, but we'll get to that in a second. The first thing that I see when I look at all of this, it looks very intuitive and very similar to the deck builder. You've got all the cards right in front of you. You can filter them, and there's some additional info. I think our starting point might be, what is the purpose of this?
Okay, so what is the purpose of this? As you know, in 11.10 will be the last update, the last content update prepared by the designers, the GWENT team. I'm mainly talking about content update because there is a possibility that there will be some technical updates, right? But there will be no changes to cards and whatnot, right? But something that was very important for GWENT throughout the years was that there were changes regularly, right? Like if you logged into the game 1 month or 2 months after you played it the last time, there were some changes, something new to consider. Maybe some new decks emerged, and it was something that GWENT was quite known for, right? Like even before, there were plenty other card games that started making those updates more frequent. GWENT was quite known for having them quite regularly, and we want to preserve that. Even without the developer team behind GWENT, we want to ensure that you guys can still have an ever-changing environment. So the purpose of Balance Council, maybe unlike the name suggests, is not to create an environment in which the game is like perfectly balanced, but it is to ensure that something changes all the time and that you have something new to consider. So that would be it for the purpose mostly. We can maybe talk about who can participate in this, right?
Can I participate?
So you could participate, Ryan, for example, right? Because in order to participate, you need to meet 2 conditions. The first condition is that your account needs to be at least Prestige 1. So the new accounts cannot participate at all. You need to have Prestige 1. And the second condition is that you need to either be in Pro rank or have won 25 ranked games in the current season.
Okay.
What this means is that, maybe not what this means, but why we have this condition, right? So we want people to have representation from all kinds of groups, but we also want people who vote to be people who actually play the game. Yeah. They are familiar with what is played, what is not, how strong things really are, because things can be a bit deceiving if you don't have a lot of experience. So if you are in Pro rank, then it means one of two things, right? Either you entered Pro rank this season, which means you won enough games on a decently high level to join it, or you were in top 500 in the previous season, which means you played a lot in the previous season, right? Like you are not very behind on the state of the game.
Yeah.
And we also want to have this opportunity for dedicated players who are not maybe so high, but they play the game a lot and they are able to win, to also participate. So that's why we have this condition that you can win 25 ranked games and still participate. Because, they are still part of the community, right? So we want them to be able to participate.
It also... Just to jump in, it also means that you really have to play the game, because if it was just play 25 games, you might have just, jumped into 25 games, forfeited immediately just to fulfill the necessity of those, and then vote for whatever you want. But we actually want people to play. And if it's 25 wins, that means that you need to play at least 25 full games.
Yeah, you need to show that there is some form of dedication, right? And it also, I think it's a fine milestone to have in GWENT, right? Like if you are the type of player who likes to have some form of encouragement of what I should be doing, right? Like getting this 25 games might be your encouragement to play and maybe to cast some votes. Okay, so you can participate like this, and as you could see, in order to participate, you just click on the card dedicated for balance cancel in the main menu, right? It's pretty simple.
Yep.
So once we are inside, you can see that this does look like a deck builder, right? We wanted this to look familiar. And you can see that there are 4 categories that we call brackets in our like info panels and other stuff. And you can use those brackets to vote. Each of those brackets has 3 slots, and as you can see, you have a power increase bracket, power decrease bracket, provisions increase bracket, and provisions decrease bracket. You can drag and drop your cards in the specific positions. As you could see here, when Ryan was dragging Amphibious Assault, the power brackets were darkened out, right? Like you can't put them there because they of course don't have power. So there are some limitations, right? You can't, for example, vote for a provisions decrease on a card that costs 4. We can try it here. As you can see, you can do that. You can vote for increase, but not for decrease. So the core rules of the game still apply. The unit can't have 0 power as well, right? Why we call those increase and decrease, not buffs and nerfs, because of course this can be a bit ambiguous whether something is a buff or a nerf. For example, these loyalty cards, if you increase their power, it probably means you made them worse, not better, right? So you can put those cards in any position they fit into, and once you are done, you will be able to submit your votes. And when the cycle is over, which I think the end goal is for it to happen once per month. When the cycle is over, the system will calculate the votes and will generate a list of cards that can be changed. We will talk about maybe those list of cards and how many cards can be changed, what are the requirements for the cards to be changed in a moment. But for now, I would like to maybe talk about the placement, right?
Exactly.
Ryan.
Yeah, I was wondering, so there's 3 in each bracket, and they have multiple tiers. So how much does it matter in which order I place these?
So the order is important because it shows your preference in a very practical way. So the number of stars in each slot represents the number of votes you will actually cast on the card. So if you put something in the top position, you've cast 3 votes. So you should leave it for something that you are very, very much like you very want something to be changed, right? Number of votes will matter because not all the cards will be changed, of course, right? Like we will generate a list of. Right now, I can talk about the numbers. That there will be maximum 15 changes per bracket, right? As you can see here. So up to 60 changes total, right? It can be quite a significant
patch.
Yeah, quite a significant patch. But it's maximum 15, so no more than 15 for sure. Minimum of 3, and minimum means that you can bypass the minimum number of votes. So there will be always at least 12 changes at the very least. The reason for that is that we want, as long as somebody participates, we want the system to work. We don't want it to be blocked out completely.
Yeah.
If there's like only a few people who participate, right? And there's minimum votes per card required to count outside of those minimum changes, right? So right now the minimum number of votes you need is 50. So as you can count, like if you can vote for something on the top position, you cast 3 votes, right? So you need more people to actually vote for it to count, unless it will be it will be one of the 3 minimum changes.
At least 17 people, if my math is correct.
Yes, at least 17 people. So yeah, it is encouraged definitely to talk maybe to your fellow GWENT players, maybe on Discord, maybe on streams, and maybe choose some priorities together, because it will definitely make it easier, right, to bypass the minimum vote requirement. But if you just want to, if you just have an opinion on the game and you want to vote and you are sure that other people will feel the same way, you can also do that, right?
Yep.
So yeah, position matters. Top position gives 3 votes, middle one is 2 votes, bottom one is 1 vote. As you could also see, there were leaders there. I don't know why they were not showcased in the list. But if you search for the leader, you could see it. Maybe Patrice Alda Fury, for example. Okay, yeah, we can see that the leaders are represented by their icon. And something that is also important is that the provisions increase and decrease. Again, we don't mention buffs and nerfs because this can mean different things. But increase and decrease of provisions and power just means change to the number you see on the card.
Yeah.
So in Patrice Alda Fury, you see 15, right? And the change requires you to not be a fresh player, a new player who maybe doesn't have a lot of experience with GWENT. So if you want to participate, you need to be quite experienced. And then you probably know that this 15 on Patrice Alda Fury doesn't mean that it costs you 15, right? To play the card, but it's the bonus of the leader. Leaders are unique, right? They behave differently. So if you vote for increase, this number will go from 15 to 16,
which is a
means,
buff.
Yes, for leaders it will be a buff, right?
Yeah.
So you have to keep that in mind, because leaders work this way. It will always be about increasing or decreasing the number, as you can see. And we also have like a small sneak peek here that Pavko has Harmony, one of the changes that we didn't talk about, but it is in the patch notes. So yeah, shout out to Pavel. And yeah, we have once you are satisfied, for example, with your state of votes, you can submit them, but we won't submit them yet, maybe, because I also want to talk about another possibility.
I think it's also illegal technically to show what you vote for in at least in Germany. But obviously,
like we don't have this secrecy requirement for voting. We actually encourage
exactly,
we
quite the
actually
opposite.
encourage to share it, right?
Yeah.
Of course, you don't have to.
We don't want to, but suggest what you should vote for, but rather the community itself should figure that out.
Yeah, exactly. We want this to be a community feature where people work together to achieve the state of the game they want.
Yeah, I do suggest though to nerf Puffco Gale into the ground.
Okay, yeah, that's a solid suggestion. I also think so. One more thing I wanted to talk about is that you can actually drag a card into 2 different brackets. So in this case, it's a bit. Okay, no, this is actually a good example, right? Because you could vote for power increase and decrease as well if you want to, but it's useless, right? Like you just did nothing. Congratulations. I guess maybe you don't know that you did nothing yet because I didn't talk about that. We will only execute 1 change per card. If you are lost, if you find this chaotic, there will be an article where we explain it on the website, so don't worry about it. It will be more organized day, but yeah, only 1 change per card will be executed. The one with the most votes, and then if there's ties, we break this down to some tiebreakers that we explain in the FAQ as well. So there can be a situation, for example, where there is a card that people really dislike. And it's a unit, let's say Puffco Gale, right? Nobody likes playing against Puffco Gale for some reason. And you really think, damn, I really want Puffco Gale to be weaker. It's way too strong. But I don't want to guess if it's more likely that people will vote for provisions increase or more likely that they will vote for power decrease, right, as well.
Yep.
So I want to vote for both. Yeah, it should be provisions increase in this case, right? I want to vote for both because I don't want to risk that the votes are split in some way that they don't cross the minimum vote requirement and no change happens, right? But as long as either of those changes happens, I'm happy. Like if this is your chain of thought, you can vote for the card in 2 categories. We allow this possibility. We encourage you to vote for, of course, many different cards, but if you really want one specific card to be changed in any way and you just want it to be changed, you have the option to do that.
Cool.
Okay, so now we have this out of the way. So one more thing that I wanted to talk about is that you don't need to fill this page in. You don't need to vote for 12 cards. If you really hate Puffco Gale again, you can just vote for Puffco Gale power decrease, refuse to elaborate, and leave, and submit the vote, right?
Perfect.
Yeah, you can do that.
Do you want to do that? That is up to you.
Yeah, that is up to you. I suggest we don't do that here. I'm not sure what will happen if you submit votes.
No. I was told not to submit.
Okay, cool. So you can do it. And you will be able to change the votes before the voting closes as well. It will also not be open from the beginning of the season. As far as I remember, we only open it after some time. So yeah, but the timing should be intuitive because there, as you can see, there's a timer for when voting closes within the feature. There will also be a timer for when it opens.
Yeah.
You guys will figure it out. GWENT players are the smartest players in the world, right? So we know that. There will be no problem with this.
Yeah.
If you have any questions about this feature, you can reach out to to us on Discord, on social media. If you reach out to tech support as well, they will probably give you an answer. So they will probably talk to us, and we will definitely reach out to you as well.
Yep.
So yeah, I think I covered the basics. I know it was a bit chaotic, but again, everything you need will be in the FAQ and the info panel that pops up when you open this feature for the first time.
Exactly. If you want to screenshot it, you can do that as well. Post it, send it to your friends. From me, just some quick mini infos. It's really smooth to just drag and drop these around. Also, you can technically just swap them if you want to. And as Molegion said, you don't have to fill all of it. You can submit it with just a couple of changes. Tokens and evolving cards or transforming cards won't be targetable because they are not part of your base deck builder in that sense. Also, there are some limitations that were mentioned before, like you cannot go below 4 provision or down to 0 power. But on the flip side, there's no limit to the higher end, so you could technically vote for a card like Haunt to have its provision increased 100 times, 100 months in a row, and then it will be at 114 provision. Same goes for power. You can technically vote Dagon to be at over, I don't know if you can go to over 9,000 power. It would also take a lot of years, but I think technically it's possible.
Yes, it is technically possible, but as you said, it will only affect the first form of Dagon. So this is actually one more thing that I will add to keep that in mind, that if there's a card that has multiple forms, the system only allows you to vote for the basic form. So if you want such cards to be changed, it's probably better to vote for provision changes, right?
Yeah.
Because this will affect them both and not just the one you are voting for. So yeah, unfortunately there are some limitations, but we hope this will still encourage you to check out GWENT regularly and keep playing. I will definitely keep playing. It will be very weird after all these years.
Yeah.
To just go back to GWENT and just play it as, you know, it's a game I play just like that. There's like, I'm not thinking about work or anything.
I agree. And the control of it will be in everybody's hands. One more question while you said checking out. Where do I check out the results of the voting?
So when you enter, I don't remember right now if this is when you enter the game or when you enter the feature for the first time after the voting updates, you will see a list of affected cards. So everything is in the game.
I believe it is if you open the balance council for the first time after it was submitted.
Yeah, but that you're talking about info panel, right? And anyway, the change list will be in the client. Yeah. This is the important part. You will see everything in there, and you don't need to check externally. So that should be helpful if you don't like, if you just log into GWENT to play GWENT and you don't enter websites, streams, or whatever.
Exactly. Great. I think I'm fairly certain that covers all the basics of this great and very new feature. I'm super excited to see how it turns out, how players interact with it, and how well organized the community is. To be honest, I can see a lot of planning happening and some heated arguments about which cards to focus on and which cards to adapt first. I'm super excited. It feels like some form of a social experiment in a sense. And I like that cards can only be affected once and not have multiple things changed every month. So there's gonna be a slow, let's say, fluctuation of power and points and provisions.
Yeah, no drastic changes, but regular ones.
Exactly.
And potentially a lot of them. It will be definitely interesting. It's not a very common way of interacting with the game. So I'm really looking forward to how this works out. I hope to see some like heated discussions. I think this was part of the fun, actually, you know, getting people to vote for whatever you want and give like trade offers. I vote for Drachen buff, but you nerf buff Gale again. I'm really sorry, Pavel. Like it's just sticked. The example just sticked for the rest of the video. But yeah, I think it will be cool. Hopefully the players will feel this weight as well. Also, the number of changes, you know, we are talking 15 per bracket, minimum 50 votes, this kind of stuff. There's an option that this will still change. It's hard for us to predict how many people will actually interact with the feature. So we went with a pretty mild requirements, right? Especially in terms of number of votes, just to make sure that there is a flow of changes. But if there's, for example, a ton of people interacting, we might increase the minimum vote requirement a little bit.
Yep.
But yeah, this is something that we'll have to see.
As you said, while the future of card changes now lies in your hands, we will still be here for at least 2 of those change cycles, to keep an eye on those, make sure that everything's working correctly, and also maybe tweak a few numbers, as you said, of how many cards might be changed, maximum, minimum, how many votes required, so it works as intended. But with that being said, that brings us to the conclusion of our very final developer update in this sense. We will be back, or at least the GWENT Masters team will be back in December as well, to bring you the finals of the 5th season of GWENT World Masters. But before that, I would like to say a big thank you to Molegion for not only always coming on here and talking with me about developer changes, about card changes, about what we're bringing to the game, but also obviously working behind the scenes a lot on all of these changes together with the rest of the GWENT team. So yeah, I'll leave the floor to you, Molegion, if you want to say something. Thank you very much from myself and obviously also the community, and the floor is yours.
Yeah, just briefly, thank you, Ryan. So it's I didn't imagine this point where we talk in the last developer update. I didn't think of it much when I joined the company. Yeah, I've been involved with GWENT for a long time, since 2017. Mm-hmm. If you played GWENT in beta times, you might remember me, from some tournaments and other stuff. I did a lot of stuff in GWENT. I was a streamer, a pro player, and then a dev. So yeah, GWENT has been a pretty important part of my life. It sucks to have to close this chapter, because if it was up to me, I would definitely not close it yet. And yeah, but overall, I'm quite happy and proud of the work we did on GWENT. One of our main goals was always to not bore you guys, to make sure that we challenge you, because I think this was what GWENT has always been about, and this is what GWENT so much popularity and attention, that it was the challenging game, where you can express yourself and do smart things, and we really wanted this to be priority, and I think we did a decent job at that. So yeah, thank you very much for sticking around through the better and worse days, and I hope you will still stick around with Gwentfinity. I think there will be ways to keep the game interesting. If you played, for example, before the homecoming, you might know that there was a pretty long content drought period where there was no changes at all, right? So no provision changes, power changes, that kind of stuff. And there was still an ever-evolving meta where there were new decks coming up all the time. So yeah, as long as there's people who love GWENT, I think the game will evolve, and I'm looking forward to see where it goes. So thank you very much on behalf of me and the other designers who worked on the game throughout the years. And yeah, see you maybe on the battlefield.
I think that's a very good point. I remember that we started our, let's say, the GWENT career in the same team as well. It was a pleasure playing GWENT with you back in the day before we were working on the game, while we were still in Team Aretusa. And then later on, on different paths, but working on the same project. It's been a pleasure working with you, Molegion. And
likewise.
Make sure, everyone out there, to send him your thanks, send him your love. And I'm going to be excited to see you around in the community still playing GWENT. We'll definitely meet up on the battlefield. And with that, thank you all so much for watching. Thank you for supporting GWENT. And we'll hopefully see you soon. Bye.